Welcome to an Electric Conversations podcast brought to you by Zaap Charge. Hey everyone, welcome to another show. We are excited about this one. I mean, let's face it, we've been excited about all the shows so far, but this one, we're traveling a little bit further away from Canada than we have to date. We are going all the way to New Delhi, India, where we are going to be chatting with a gentleman. He goes by the moniker, the Race Monkey, which is kind of intriguing. I haven't asked him about that yet, so I'm curious to find out what that's all about. Let's welcome Ishaan Bharadwaj to our show, Electric Conversations. Good day, sir. How are you?
All good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you. First off, before we start talking about, I guess, EVs and what it's like in India, you have to explain the Race Monkey to me.
So I started off my motorsport career some 11 years ago when I was in the 11th standard in school. And I was picked up by one of the most known personalities in the Motorsport Federation in India, Mr. Vicky Chandok. And he used to find me running around the racetrack, crashing the go-karts every now and then. And he used to call me a monkey by the way I used to behave. And hence the name, the Race Monkey, emerged, and everyone started calling me that and pointing me at with that particular name. They stopped calling me by my real name, but started calling me by the Race Monkey, and they still do it till today.
Right. Clearly, it's a compliment and a term of endearment.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, you must like it because you use it now.
Yes.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the Race Monkey today, not the young lad that was racing around before, but what the Race Monkey stands for you today.
So I completed my mechanical engineering back in 2014, and I saw that most of the journalists, and I don't want to generalize the community of journalists into automotive industry, they do not have that sort of a hardcore knowledge and experience upon machines and cars. And hence, I wanted to bring that sort of a content, that sort of an experience to people in my write-ups and my content, where I could be excessively and explicitly raw about the mechanicals, the way the car behaves, the physics, the chemistry that goes behind manufacturing those cars, and so on and so forth. And it just makes it a more interesting read. And I take my cars to racetracks and to some really crazy adventures and really test the cars to their limits and make content out of it.
Well, I had to chuckle when you said it seemed like journalists didn't really know. Years ago, I was in mainstream media, and I remember seeing a cartoon, and it showed a dartboard with all kinds of topics on it. So it might have been automotive, politics, sociology, all these sorts of things. And the reporter had a dart. And at the head of the dartboard, it said, "Today I am an expert in." And they throw the dart, whatever it hits, that's what you ended up being an expert in. So I don't think it's an insult to say a lot of the people involved in mainstream media doing these stories didn't have the knowledge, because they try to be generalists on everything. So what is it that you think that you're bringing then to people that are paying attention to the Race Monkey website? What is it you think you're bringing that others are not able to?
So there's a lot that goes behind making the engine, making the structure of the car, the materials, the engineering behind each and every aspect, the attention to detail that goes into manufacturing a car. And I focus majorly on premium vehicles. So there is a lot of intricacies and complex things involved in making those cars. And to explain that concept for each and every vehicle requires a lot of experience, requires in-depth knowledge about what you're speaking out. Because besides the people who read about cars and new technology and everything on magazines, on websites and YouTube channels, there is a community of people who are deeply rooted down to the minutest of things in terms of how the cars are engineered. And, to please them, that's what I'm trying to put my specialization in.
So, I mean, and you've got a lot of social media platforms that you're using as well. You're giving away a lot of this information for free. So how does this turn into a viable business for you?
That's a good question, Rob.
Okay.
I do tie up with a lot of manufacturers wherein I do promotion, which are paid. And I do have a platform where I sell cars through my website Medium. So if any person who reads my review about the car comes up to me with a query, I then transfer them to the respective dealership network that we are in touch with, and we sort of extract commissions out of it.
We're actually going to touch on a little bit about what you do with your business a little bit later in the show as well, because it's kind of fascinating. But let's talk about electric vehicles then. What is, I guess, sort of the status or the interest in electric vehicles in India right now?
So, Rob, currently in the last 3 years, I would say the electric vehicle industry in India has grown substantially. When I say the industry has grown, as you know, that there were cars like the Reva or the G-Ways that is known internationally that had already been there in the market for the last 1.5, 2 decades. And it was a very slow-moving infrastructure and the industry at that point of time. And all of a sudden, because of the pollution situation, the congestions that were happening within the tier 1 cities, the government actually rang a bell, sounded an alarm, and started working even more in terms of the infrastructure and the technology, and started initiating certain policies towards it. And hence, all the manufacturers came into play. Major Indian manufacturers like Tata, Mahindra, Maruti Suzuki, they initiated the manufacturing of electric vehicles. They did hardcore development because in India, we are famous for bad road quality and a lot of other things. And hence, to develop a car that is suitable for the Indian environment, especially with the heat that we have in our country, was quite a task. And the companies took their merry time, and now they've come up with so many greater products. And what I was wondering if these products would be as popular as the IC counterparts, but surprisingly, there is a demand of up to 2.5 times of the supply that the manufacturers are giving, which is a good thing. People are actually appreciating the incoming of electric vehicles in India.
Do you think it's part of a part of the movement that seems to be taking part around the world, where people just seem to be more environmentally conscious?
That's true. That's true. And we have to be more environmentally conscious because of the pollution problems that we have. Let's say in a country like Canada, because there is so much of space available, there is lesser population, even though in your country and in countries like Germany, they are getting more and more conscious about sustainable and non-polluting mobility. And hence, that sort of culture is slowly coming into our country as well within the intellectual the population. And they are promoting manufacturers to supply even more electrical vehicles that they can use on a daily basis. So yeah, I mean, that consciousness has actually come also because of what the global demands are.
Well, and talk to us a little bit about the pollution there. I mean, as you mentioned, Canada's spread wide out. I'm in Alberta, lots of space, not that many people. What is it like in some of the major centers in India?
So where I live, New Delhi is it's supposed to be the toxic capital of the world, one of the toxic capitals after Beijing, of course. And we've had PM 2.5 that rises up to 999 levels. The air pollution level sometimes has not gone below 400 and 500 units, which is fatal, and it can cause cancerous problems. You know, there are a lot of pathogens and cancerous elements in the air, and if people with lung problems and other ailments go out and breathe that air without a mask, they are going to fall sick. I mean, it is a straightaway thing, and that's a big problem. It has been a big problem for the last 5 years. The pollution, although so many different developments were done by the government, by the technocrats, but still, I mean, we are not able to curb that sort of a pollution problem, and it still exists. But somehow, because of the coronavirus, which had come in, and because of the lockdown, we sort of were able to curb it to a certain extent.
So you have noticed the difference then with some of the restrictions being put in place because of COVID-19?
Absolutely. We can see the stars.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Now, when it comes to electric vehicles, so I'm picturing New Delhi because, of course, I've seen pictures of it. I mean, it looks very busy. It doesn't look like traffic moves very fast. You know, they often talk about range anxiety when it comes to electric vehicles. Will I be able to make it to the next charging station or to my destination? I imagine these are concerns that that are felt in India as well.
That's true, Rob. So there are a lot of things that are not acknowledged well within the automotive community and the people and the consumers of electric cars. There are people who are wanting to move to electric cars because of the benefits, the financially and ecologically that it gives. Electric cars are as economical as 1/7 times of the cost to run from an IC engine. Like if we talk in numbers, an electric car would take 1 rupees per kilometer to run than an IC car, which runs at approximately 7 to 7.5 rupees a kilometer. So that sort of an encouragement is there. People are moving towards electric vehicles. But then again, talking about range anxiety, what I see is there are certain cars, like let's talk about the Tata Nexon Electric. That's the national manufacturer's product that has recently been launched in the starting of this year before the coronavirus hit us. The car has a range of 350 kilometers on a full charge. It has a 32 kilowatt per hour battery pack, and on a 3-point charging socket, it gets charged in 5 hours time. Now, the problem is what people see is, oh, there's going to be range anxiety. Where are we going to charge? I mean, they just don't try to research into it that there are charging stations. New Delhi, in the current time, has 350 charging points with 50 kilowatt an hour capacity that can charge that car within 45 minutes of time. And these are available almost in every marketplace and office parking spaces, which is quite a boon. And what I see is the maximum range that a regular person would use within the city with an electric car would be somewhere around 100 to 150 to 160 kilometers at max. That would be the driving range that one should be looking at. It is just the bad marketing that people do on Instagram and on social media that, oh, you know, this car would run out of charge in this much time and you won't be able to charge it somewhere. We just don't look at what sort of a usage do we have on a regular and research about the charging station availability.
Well, I mean, you mentioned 350 kilometers. That's basically what I get with my vehicle on gas here, you know, in Edmonton. And I mean, if you had 300 plus charging stations, I don't imagine it'd be that difficult to find one.
That's true.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying, you know, these charging stations are much available on Google Maps as well. Like if you search for a charging station, every charging station is available within 3 to 4 kilometers radius of each other.
Oh, wow. Wow, that I mean, that sounds like you've got a good infrastructure built like that. Here in Canada, I mean, we're still looking at building that if you want to travel any distance as well. If you head outside of New Delhi, I imagine it's a bit of a different story.
Not really.
Really?
Again, it's sort of an information that has not been explored yet. So some of the journalists, also some of my friends who have electric cars as their long-termers and people who have purchased electric cars, they have experimented on this thing. So if we go further on to approximately 400 and 500 kilometers north of New Delhi, where this place called Amritsar, to the famous Golden Temple, there are approximately 6 to 7 charging stations available at every 40 to 50 kilometers of distance. So on the highways, the infrastructure is already there and it's working.
I mean, so I'm caught a little bit off guard, and I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about India, you know, and I'm just, it seems like the infrastructure is really there, and that, you know, government and industry obviously must be working hand in hand to try and make a difference here.
That's true. That's true. So the government has incentivized the private sector to start installing electric charging points at different places wherever you think that it might be required. The government has created this scheme called the FAME scheme. It says faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. FAME. And this states that, you know, that the electric charging points is not a part of the sale, but as a part of the service. So a vendor really does not require licensing to put up a charging station. People can put up charging stations at their restaurants and their parking lots Hotels can do it in their parking lots. Petrol stations can put it in near to their parking lots. So that's the sort of encouragement the government is giving. There are grants involved as well. There is a huge depreciation in the amount that a person pays per unit of electricity when it's used on these charging stations installed with a meter. So yeah, the infrastructure, the information flow, it's all there. It's just that we just don't go to the right source to acknowledge ourselves about that.
That seems like a problem in today's media altogether, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So when I think of India, I don't think of it to be as developed as Canada or North America as a whole. A developing nation, clearly a growing nation. Is there a different, because here there's a lot of reliance on gas vehicles, right? And everybody's got it in there. So many people have it in their head. This is what I've got. This is what I want. And it seems to me from what you're telling me that the movement to change is coming faster in India than it might be coming in North America.
Yes, Rob, you're right. So the thing is, most of the people in India who can afford electric cars have a driving range of about 150 to 160 kilometers, as I spoke about. And these people, 95% of the time, stay inside the cities. And most of the tier 1 cities in India have their infrastructure in place. So yes, the movement is slowly flowing out. It's actually the marketing of this entire electric vehicle thing is happening from word of mouth rather than online ads, and the government sort of incentivizing people online and on TV, and then they're trying to acknowledge people on TV. It's just happening from word of mouth. Like, for example, I buy an electric car today. I have an electric car these days. And if I am using it on a daily basis, I use it to go to my sites. I use it to go to my office and to meet my friends. When anyone asks me that, is there any benefit, they feel awkward about it. Why are you driving an electric car? There is range anxiety. There are no charging points. That is the point where I get the opportunity to explain it to them and induce them to learn more about it and research more about it. That is where the acceleration of information happens, rather than on different mediums on electronic media.
Right. Like so many things, it seems like people have an opinion without having all the information.
That's true.
You have a chance to, as you mentioned, review a number of different cars. So I see on your Instagram posts, some high-end vehicles. How do you find the high-end vehicles that you look at, Audis, et cetera, compared to the electric vehicles that are available in India?
So, first of all, these vehicles are very expensive indeed to purchase in India because of the custom duties. We face approximately 100 to 120% of custom duties over the actual cost of the car. So, for example, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class in the UK would cost somewhere around 95 lakh rupees to 1 crore rupees in Indian currency. And here in India, it inflates up to 1.6 to 1.9 crore rupees to start off with. So the purchase cost is high. Because of those custom duties, most of the components that are imported are at a high price again. So the maintenance of these cars are again more expensive. These cars require a better quality of fuel. Those are expensive. The overall infrastructure, I don't say that they're not bad, but then if you compare it to an electric vehicle and the ownership cost of an electric vehicle, there's a huge difference. Like, you save a lot, and as we say, electric cars are the future. I think the future is coming too quick, and they are being very enthusiastic about the products that are coming out.
Is there a lifestyle around it? Because in North America, there seems to be a lifestyle around Tesla, and people like to promote that. Are you finding the same thing with electric vehicle owners in your country?
So with electric vehicles, no, because it's still a very new concept, and it's only significant within the tier 1 cities, the big cities, and that too only within the community of people who are into services, who are working. Very few of the business owners have those electric cars. But yeah, I mean, something what is happening in the North America with the Tesla and the sort of community and the the entire infrastructure of people that there is, it's slowly coming up till there. I guess it's going to take another 5 years to people to start creating that sort of a community, that sort of a trend, that sort of a culture around electric cars. But yeah, I mean, I'm slowly and steadily seeing that culture come, but it's just at a very minute scale.
Okay. Now, are your electric vehicles quite as futuristic as, say, a Tesla is? When you look at a Tesla, there's nothing on the dash. There's just basically an iPad Pro there for you to work with. Is that what you're working with in India, or is it more of a traditional design inside the vehicle?
So you're right. It's a very traditional design inside the vehicle. Most of the electric cars we have right now, again, I'm going to take the example of the Tata Nexon, which is the newest of the lot. It is exactly to look like as a standard internal combustion car. I mean, the internal combustion variant of it in India. The petrol, diesel, and the electric car look very similar. Besides the color scheme, besides a few tweaks inside the interiors, but nothing else is different. And the major emphasis in today's time within the industries in India, especially in the automotive sector, in the four-wheeler sector, is upon safety. Indian cars was very famous for being unsafe, unreliable, in the yesteryears, and the company which I'm talking about, Tata, has taken a pledge to be making all the cars at 5-star safety rating all across, which is quite a thing. And that is the first step they've taken towards making an electric car more feasible and more enjoyable and more acceptable in the market. So yes, I mean, going futuristic and minimalistic like the Tesla is, I think it's going to take some time, but it's just a different approach to this culture.
You talk about taking some time, and clearly there is a movement to try and do things better around the world. Often the complaint you hear in North America is, sure, you want us to cut back on emissions, but what about the big countries like China and India? What are they doing? So give us a sense of what India might be doing now to make a difference in its imprint on the world when it comes to carbon footprint, et cetera, and pollution.
So there are a lot of schemes and policies that have come. For example, with the IC engines, there are certain steps that have been taken. Some steps which are not related to how the government and the policies function. For example, the fuel cost is rising up almost every week. And there is a huge discouragement for the people to be buying more and more IC engine cars. The price of petrol and diesel very recently was equalized. So people stopped getting encouraged to buy diesel cars here in India. And there is a life cycle limit as well in the Indian subcontinent, wherein a petrol car can only be registered for 15 years and the diesel car can only be registered for 10 years. So eventually people start thinking, okay, diesel car pollutes more, costs over, a lot more than a petrol car, and has a 5-year lesser life cycle. Hence, people then move towards petrol cars. Now, petrol cars, there are emission norms that have been imposed. They have gotten stricter. There is a certain grams per kilometer of carbon footprint that a car can make. There was a huge problem with Volkswagen very recently where they had this Dieselgate problem, and Volkswagen was banned from manufacturing any diesel cars in India, which gave them a big hit in terms of their market share, because Volkswagen was famous for selling good diesel cars back in the days. Mm-hmm. They're only importing, rather than manufacturing it here in India, they're only importing their cars, and that too petrol only.
It sounds as if the government is at least doing something to try and make a difference, and in essence, force the people of the country to make a change as well.
That's true, and I'm sure this change is going to come. It's slow, it's steady, because we have a huge population density. To widespread this information, it's going to take some time. But the thing is, this sort of steps and the policies that have come up, which are yet to be acknowledged to the 1.3 billion people that we have in our country, once it's done, I guess there is going to be a big, advancement towards this culture towards electric cars and cars that are run by renewable sources, and people are going to appreciate it even more, because if they see it in a more financial sense as well, besides seeing the environmental problems that we are facing, an electric car is much more cheaper to run than an IC engine car. Yes, it is a bit expensive to purchase in the first place, and even for that, the government is giving a good amount of grant and saving you from a huge interest pool that comes in with the financing of the car. So there is an encouragement happening from the government side as well. But yes, it's gonna be not soon before long when we see more and more electric cars coming into our country.
When you say you've got a population of over 1 billion, first off, that's hard to imagine coming from Canada. And secondly, you've got so many people, obviously so many different opinions on many of the issues. Is the environmental movement growing in India amongst the people as well?
Yes, there is. People are getting more aware of this problem, because most of the people who work in offices and buildings and these IT companies, they barely get to see the outside world. They're stuck in their seats inside their rooms, and they're just working on the computer, and they go back home in the air-conditioned cars and live in an air-conditioned homes. The sale of air purifiers in India went to 500 times last year.
Wow.
And the people who are manufacturing air purifiers became millionaires within weeks of the time period. And there was a huge demand of it. So much so that at certain points, there were huge, long queues in front of electronic stores just to purchase those air purifiers. So the problem is there. But now, since people started getting sick, they started getting health issues. And I'm not talking about people who are 50, 55 years of age. There are people who are at the age of 25 who are having lungs and, breathing problems and blood issues. So, yeah, I mean, people then get that hit, and then they start acknowledging it as a real problem and function towards it. So, yes, the youth is getting very aggressive towards facing challenges and curbing this environmental problem that we have.
Well, and that's the thing about pollution too, isn't it? It doesn't discriminate.
That's true.
We're going to wrap up right now. I want you to just let everybody know about your Instagram handle, your YouTube, and your website, so that people who are interested in learning more about you and the projects that you've got going on can check it out.
So all of you can follow the Race Monkey page by typing instagram.com/the Race Monkey. We create content around some of the most exciting cars in India and on the global platform as well sometimes. And we take those cars onto places which are completely not meant for those cars. And we do some adventures. We test the cars on racetracks, talk to you in a very personal way in terms of the doubts that you have, the questions that you have. We solve your technical questions about the purchase that you are wanting to make, or if you're just curious, you can connect with us as well. We are just not an online magazine to promote and publish about cars. We are like friends. We're like a community of enthusiastic people from the automobile community in India to come together and talk and make a better let's say a culture for automobiles in India when it comes to internal combustion engines or electric vehicles. And we are one of the only, I'm probably saying it because as far as I've seen, that has not happened. We are one of the only publications that emphasize strongly on electric vehicles. We do a lot of content on electric vehicles on a very customized way, rather than just it being mainstream content that we put on our website. So yeah.
Well, and let's be clear too, while you're in India and you're India focused, which makes sense, a lot of the information you're putting out there can be used by anybody around the world.
That's true.
That's okay. That's true. Dead stop. There's no doubt about that. Ishaan, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been enlightening and learned some fascinating things about what's going on in other parts of the world.
You're welcome, Rob. And I was really happy to be here and discuss a lot about what's happening on this part of the world in the world of electric mobility. And I'm sure when we speak again, we would have advanced even more, and there would be more things to talk about in terms of.
Well, it certainly sounds like things are moving quite quickly in India, and you seem like a guy who's got his finger on the pulse.
I'm sure.
Thank you so much for your time. We have been chatting with Ishaan Bharadwaj from New Delhi, India, finding out a little bit about what the market's like there, finding a little bit more out about, I guess, just the environmental movement there. And as he pointed out, it certainly seems to be a lot more advanced than what many people in North America might be aware of, and great to get information from other sources, that is for sure. Thank you so much for joining us here on Electric Conversations, brought to you by Zaap Charge. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.